All right, what's up, guys? Well, today I'm going to take a little break from the detailing stuff. I wanted to do an update video, a one-year update on my Swisstrax installation. So as part of the garage renovation that I did last year, I did a Swisstrax install and I made a video a couple of months afterwards. I think it was like back in October, where it was some notes about the installation and some initial impressions, review, all that kind of stuff. But now that it has been one full year and I've had some more experiences with them and a couple of more observations that I wanted to share for anybody else who would be considering doing a flooring like this. And I'm gonna say Swisstrax because that's what I went with, but really I think this is applicable to any kind of a modular tile flooring. So race deck, I'm sure there's like a half dozen brands on Amazon that you can get, but really it's just the interconnected plastic tiles that you can install in your garage. And you can really install these anywhere, actually, in any room, but this is a car enthusiast channel. We do stuff in the garage. So Swisstrax in the garage, one-year update video. Here we go. Now, I'm not gonna go into like installation stuff or color options and patterns and the different tile options and everything like that, just because I think I touched a lot of that on the initial video. So if you haven't checked that out yet, feel free to give that a view, especially if you are doing the install. There's a pretty cool tile trick in there that I talk about. But again, this is just like the day-to-day stuff that you might want to keep in mind if you are going to do this install. Now, first up is like the reason that you would do any kind of a tile like this, right, is for the aesthetics. I think above anything else that you can do to your garage, whether it's what you do to the walls or if you paint the ceiling and do those like hex lights or whatever, I don't think anything really elevates the look of a garage like doing a Swisstrax flooring install. And again, by Swisstrax, I mean any kind of tile flooring, but Swisstrax. It just elevates the garage better than I think any other thing that you can do. Now, that's kind of a subjective thing because like some people like epoxy flooring. Personally, I hate epoxy flooring. I hate the way it looks. I don't like the flakes. I don't like walking on it. I hate the way it sounds when you drive a car on it. Just never been a fan of any of the epoxy flooring stuff. So for me, Swisstrax is just a way better option. And again, I think the way that it looks, it just totally transforms the look of your garage. But beyond just the aesthetics of it, which again is, part of the reason why anybody really does this, there are functional benefits. First up is keeping them clean. Now, I kind of got lazy for the first 6 months that I've had them, and then I thought at some point I was gonna do this video, so I purposely didn't clean them to give you an idea of what they look like after a solid year of use and not cleaning them. Now, I have a lot of pets, so I'm constantly dragging like animal hair out here, so I have vacuumed for like underneath of the flooring, but I haven't cleaned the surface of the flooring. And if you look, you can definitely tell. You can see that certain areas are dirty, but really, on a passing glance, or just, kind of being out here if you're not looking for it, they still look incredibly clean. So like that is one thing that I was super impressed with after a year of having these is how well they still make the garage look in terms of cleanliness. Now, underneath of them, I bet you they're a disaster. I've had to pull up a couple of tiles here and there. And so all of that dirt, all of that stuff that you don't see on the surface of the garage floor is now underneath the tiles. And so if you have to pull them up for anything, it's like a crime scene under there. But in terms of how your garage actually looks, very clean looking, so super happy with that after a year. Now, after this video, I probably will go and actually grab some like Mr. Clean or something and a mop and clean up some of the troubled areas, give it a little refreshing. But again, after a year, they still look pretty good, even being for a lighter color. If you went with white or something, probably not, but at least for a lighter or a medium tone gray, not bad. Now, if you are going to do a Swisstrax or any other kind of tile installation, two things that I think you should definitely have are one, a tile popper tool. Now this one I got from Obsessed Garage. It's for Swisstrax tiles, but it probably works with any of them. So this just goes right in between and just makes it so you can easily get a tile up if you drop something or if you spill something and you need to clean it up. It's a little bit of a hassle to pop them, but really not that big of a deal. The other thing that you absolutely need is magnetic wands. So you should probably have a set of these anyway if you were doing anything mechanically in your engine bay. But yeah, so there's never been anything that I've dropped in a tile that I haven't been able to retrieve. And if it's a small plastic piece, yes, you are popping a tile to get it, but it's just really never been an issue for me. And it's still something just worth noting that you should have if you were gonna do this kind of an install, but I don't really think it plays much in the decision making unless like you're a watchmaker or something. Now, the two biggest benefits that I think are worth pointing out, one is I feel like the Swisstrax are a little more comfortable if you're out here like working in the garage for a long period of time, right? So if you're walking around, you're standing, you're doing something with your car, it doesn't feel as fatiguing, I think, if standing on Swisstrax as opposed to being on concrete flooring, like hard concrete flooring. Swisstrax, it's a plastic tiling. It's obviously a little bit There is some flex to it, not when you're walking on it, obviously, but still, it's not the same. I think it's a little more comfortable than being on a concrete garage floor all day. And related to that, and this is actually, I think, really significant, probably the biggest benefit that I've noticed for anybody who has winters, right? So if you live in the Northeast or the Midwest, Northern Midwest, whatever it is, if you have cold climate at all, the cold doesn't transfer from the floor, right? So like I wear sneakers pretty much year round. If you wear boots in the garage, you're obviously not gonna notice this really, but you know how like if you've ever been out in your garage in the wintertime, if you had concrete flooring and it gets really cold, that transfers up to your feet and it gets just really uncomfortable. So big benefit, if you have winters, the coldness of the floor will not transfer up through your shoes, especially if you don't wear boots. Okay, now let's talk about the two primary disadvantages to Swisstrax that I think, and again, this wouldn't sway me from doing an install again. I would do it again in a heartbeat, but I think this is, not everybody might think this way, and this might be a turnoff to anybody who's considering this install, but it's something that you should keep in mind. One of those is jacking up your car. Now, on the initial video, I'd noted that the first time I tried to jack up my car in the garage, after doing the Swisstrax installation, the wheel, what happens is that if, with your jack, your wheel can get caught in a groove. Now, even though these things are built to withstand, and I don't know about the other tiles, but Swisstrax, I believe, is 3120 PSI, 3,120 PSI that these things are built to withstand. And it's like, I think 80,000 rollover pounds or something like that, whatever the numbers are. But the problem is that when you go to jack up your car, the jack needs to be able to roll. So if it gets stuck, it can't roll, and then all that downward force just gets pushed out. And so what happens is the first time that I went to go jack up the car, it wasn't rolling. I didn't quite notice, and I got probably about a quarter of the way of jacking the car up, and I noticed the floor started lifting, like the surrounding tiles started lifting. Even Swisstrax does recommend that if you are going to use a jack in your garage, you should probably have some kind of a, you know, like a steel plating or something like that you can put the jack on. And I'll get to that in a second. But in the initial video, I noted that I did have that problem, and then when I tried to do it again, it was fine. Like I guess I found the right, you know, position for the jack to be in, and I had no problem raising the car, and I put it on jack stands and everything was fine. Well, since then, every single time that I have tried to jack up my car in the garage, it didn't work. And I ended up having to take the car outside into the driveway to put it on jack stands, right? So two things that you can do to combat this. One, what I did was I bought some steel plates from Racetech. Racetech sells actually like the diamond look steel plating that you can put underneath of your jack in order to jack up the car so it doesn't damage the tile. The other thing that you can do is get quick jacks. Now, this is something that I will at some point do. It's, you know, they're a little pricey, but my God, are they probably worth it. It's just a pain to jack up your car anyway, so having quick jacks, I mean, if you've seen them, you know how unbelievably great they are. The problem really is the jack, not the jack stand. Now, the jack stand I have are I think they're the Esco jack stands or whatever, but they're ones that have the big round, you know, base on the bottom, the 3-point base. And so with those, the base is big enough that makes contact with the floor that you don't have to worry about them digging into the actual tile. Last summer, my kid, we had his Supra on jack stands for about 6 or 7 weeks while we were doing a bunch of stuff to it. And you would never even know that the jack stands were there. Didn't even leave a trace. Now, what you don't want to use are the jack stands that have the corner posts or whatever. That will just dig straight into the tile when you have the weight of the car on them. So you either want to get, and if you only have those, then you also probably want to get a steel plate to put those on top of the tile and put those underneath the jack stand. That is another recommendation from Swisstrax and Racetech and all those guys. Actually, I didn't even have this to talk about, but I just remembered this. One other thing is that, so for my F80, it is so low to the ground that I have to put it on low profile ramps before I can get the jack underneath the car. And what I noticed is that at one point, I went to go roll up on the ramps and the ramp like slid out. So depending on what ramps you have, and maybe over time they might bow a little bit if a bunch of use, I'm not sure. But yeah, they can slide out from underneath the tire. So that is something to be aware of. Okay, now the last thing to note, and I'm saving the best for last here, the last thing to be aware of about having Swisstrax or again, any other kind of tile flooring in your garage to watch out for is you might not be aware if your car has any kind of a catastrophic leak. So I had the Supra in here. I was doing an oil change, ironically, and I went to go take the car out for a little drive to just warm up the oil before doing the oil change. Plus it was a great excuse to drive. And when I got back, I noticed that there was a couple of new oil drips in the driveway. And it was more than a couple of drips. It looked alarming. So long story short, my front main seal blew and I was not aware of it. And I lost about a quart of oil underneath the flooring in the garage. The problem is I don't really have a solution for you on how to deal with that. I mean, you could slide like some pig mats or cardboard or something like that underneath of it. You'd have to do the underneath the engine and the rear diff because you could spring a leak a couple different, potential places. I don't know about other manufacturers, but Swisstrax does have a solid tile option. So, if you wanted to play it safe, if you're doing, if you have cars that you pull in the garage, you could do 2 lanes with a solid tile option so that if you did have any other kind of leak, you would notice it. Of course, the problem there is that, you have to a little bit, it's gonna break up the flow a little bit, and you'd have to keep them a little bit cleaner if you were into that kind of thing. That would show dirt a lot more than something like the rib tracks. But important point there that is worth keeping in mind if you're gonna do any kind of a tile flooring. All right, guys, well, that is all I got for this one. Again, as I said, absolutely no regrets in doing a Swisstrax install. I would do it again in a heartbeat. If I ever move out of this house, like I said, I will be the first thing that I do in my next garage, but your mileage may vary. And so some of these things, they may be a benefit that you didn't realize, or maybe a deal breaker. So either way, I hope you enjoyed the video. I will leave linked in the description below the tile popper and the magnetic wands that I mentioned earlier in case you want to check them out. But like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.